Now to South Africa, where the recent election is set to result in a big political change there. The ruling African National Congress, or ANC, which is the party of Nelson Mandela, has lost its majority in parliament for the first time since the end of apartheid 30 years ago. Well, the ANC is still the largest party with 40% of the vote, but there will now be negotiations with other parties about forming a coalition, including with the opposition Democratic Alliance and two other parties that are led by former ANC figures, one of whom is the former President Jacob Zuma and his MK party. The ANC saw a slump in support as voters said they'd had enough of high unemployment, power cuts, violent crime and crumbling infrastructure, but also due to splits within the party itself. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by Arise political editor Congress-Sambo. He's just returned from monitoring the elections in South Africa. Sumner, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Charles.
First of all, you were there. Give us a sense, a flavor of how the elections went.
Well, generally, most South Africans are actually tired of the African National Congress and what's the term petty politics within the governing party. 30 years on, it looks like the political leaders do not have a clear-cut vision as to how to get more people out of poverty. So there are more people who are entering into the poverty level, and you see the disparity within the country. The white minorities and the colored people are living better than the majority of the black people. Although the government has tried to redistribute wealth and all of that, but it looks very difficult for it. And with the power cuts and all other issues that are affecting them, the high unemployment rates, I mean, the highest within the continent, many young people were all out there to actually see how they could pay back the ANC badly. I mean, yeah, although they still performed very well, but nonetheless, there many people have thought that it will be lower than what they got, 40.18%. But I mean, they had projected 43% actually, and they were working to see how they could actually build some coalition towards the election day and see how they could up it by maybe 50 plus
but
one.
That didn't work.
Obviously, that didn't work.
So which party are they most likely to go into coalition with, or is it a wild card at the moment?
The very wild card. In the next 14 days, when they are expected to form government, I doubt if they may be able to come to a conclusion, because the ANC is actually putting some pre-negotiation barriers in place. Number one, they say if they are going to the talks, the issue of Ramaphosa stepping down will not be tabled.
Yeah.
It's a no-go area, according to the General Secretary of the ANC. And just yesterday, there was a meeting between the DA and the ANC. Now, the ANC has sent
the Democratic Alliance.
Yeah, the Democratic Alliance. Yeah, the main opposition that got
Right.
about 21% of the votes. Now, the ANC has actually set up a monitoring committee that will go around to do a pre-negotiation talk with all the political parties, the major ones actually who have dominance. And after that, they will come back to brief the ANC. Tomorrow, they are having a sort of national executive committee of the top leaders of the ANC where they will review the polls. That's on Tuesday. And from there, they are able to come to a conclusion as to what political party they should go into negotiation with. But the DA has said that it's difficult. I mean, John Steenhuisen, who is actually the DA leader, says a potential coalition between ANC and the DA will be like oil and water. It doesn't mix. And then the MK is saying that, look, they won the election. Jacob Zuma is insisting.
Yeah, he's challenging.
Yeah, in fact, he has threatened to actually sue the Electoral Commission, and that as far as he's concerned, they won the election, so there's no room for talks.
So just in that respect, I mean, could we see, you're saying there's no room for talks, but there's been some speculation about whether we might actually see the former President Jacob Zuma and the current President Cyril Ramaphosa working together in some form of coalition.
Well, Zuma wants him to actually go.
As you pointed out, there's such bad blood between them.
Yeah, because he's saying that Zuma was responsible for his downfall in 2018, and that the tag of being a corrupt leader was actually painted on him.
So there's no question of them working together.
Yes, but we have people like Thabo Mbeki and other political leaders who are trying to see how to work things out.
Right.
Thabo Mbeki was actually mad with the MK leader for actually splitting the ANC votes. But I mean, having come to this reality, people are urging them to come together for the purpose of building a new South Africa. But the ANC is also saying that it doesn't mind going into the opposition at 40.18% of the votes. If all other political parties decide to come together, they will have more votes. That's the MKDA, EFF, and of course the Good Party and all of that. Thing. Yeah, so they could actually come together and build a coalition to actually
force the ANC
into opposition. But it's saying that it doesn't mind going into opposition if it means that their demands will be that Cyril Ramaphosa must step down before
that's very interesting. I mean, you are, of course, a political editor. Looking at the politics and what has been going on there, do you see that the fact that the ANC's dominance has been reduced and they're being forced into coalition as a positive thing for democracy?
Very positive, because I mean, just like I had interviewed former President Goodluck Jonathan of Nigeria, he told me that coalition talks sometimes actually bring out the best in the country's democratic system. Because if you've been winning since 1994 and you keep forming government, now you know that you have to get into negotiation with others, because what the electorate is saying is that you haven't done much. So instead of fully throwing you out, they said no, they could actually still give you an opportunity to work with others to build a better South Africa. But if the ANC doesn't take advantage of this to rejuvenate its leadership, to rework South Africa, then of course the next elections it will be out of the game. So it's a new opportunity for it to be able to go into coalition talks, and nobody should be left out of the talks, including Jacob Zuma, irrespective of what has happened with his MK party eating into their votes, because it's practically the ANC's vote. If you look at the Inkatha Freedom Party too, it's the same thing. Because of the absence of the leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party, who passed away not quite long ago, Buthelezi, they actually chopped into the IFP's vote, the EFF's vote, and then the ANC's vote. And that's where MK has come out, through the Zulu vote, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, the updates that we're having now, Arise News just learned that in KwaZulu-Natal, there's a huge tension within that place because of the tendency for the community to go into violence, because some people are not happy with Jacob Zuma's posture, that if he doesn't see a way of building some sort of unity with the ANC, then he could actually be fighting against the wishes of the founding fathers of the country.
So there's tension there.
Yeah, so Jacob Zuma must take advantage of it, not to think of himself, but to think of South Africa, because the votes are not for him, but for the country.
Absolutely. But let me ask you to wear your political editor hat again, because of course you are a political editor here in Nigeria. What lessons do you reckon Nigeria could learn from how these South African elections were conducted?
Very interesting, Charles. Some of the things that they did, some of the reforms that they have ongoing there, which is working for them, is that number one, they actually have the issues of early voting. Where you have what's called special vote. Now, if you're a journalist, you're a policeman, you're an electoral official, you have 2 days before the election day to actually go and vote before the main election day. And so that gives you an opportunity to do an early vote. And if you're a prisoner too, or you're in the hospital, or you're elderly and all of that, you could register to be a special voter. So like for example, on last week, Monday and Tuesday, there was a special vote where people who registered for that went to vote. That's good for democracy, because I mean, as journalists, we hardly ever go out to vote. And then there is also the issue of diaspora voting. You could vote in South African high commissions and embassies across the world once you register. I mean, that's another good one. And then they also had a situation whereby the voting devices, the voter management device that was used, which is like BVAS in Nigeria here, once the presiding officers saw that it wasn't working, they resorted to manual voting. But in Nigeria, you would have to wait until the INEC chairman gives a statement. In South Africa, that happened, but it was
less bureaucracy.
Later. Yeah, less bureaucracy. And then, of course, people having faith in the system. They have an electoral court, Charles, where when you have problems, you take it to the electoral court, and the electoral court sits all through the year, not like in Nigeria, where when there's an election, all judges will be moved to the election tribunal. And what happens is that all other cases in court will suffer. But in that of South Africa, they have a standby electoral court that attends to electoral cases throughout. And then the people have the greatest faith in the institution, the IEC, the Independent Electoral Commission, that it has the capacity to actually deliver free, fair, and credible election. And we could see it happening.
And that's
the challenges.
That's very important.
Yeah, because if people don't believe in the process, then it becomes a problem. And that's what INEC is suffering now. We just hope that they are able to learn.
The Electoral Commission.
Yeah, you could see how the results were coming. I mean, at the IEC Center, National Results Coalition Center, you could see everybody, all political parties had their desks there, journalists, everybody watching and not doubting the system, irrespective of some of the challenges that we saw some of the political parties trying to make political capital out of the issues, but which are just minor issues.
Right. Sumner, thank you very much indeed, and welcome
Thank
back.
you so
Arise political editor Congress-Sambo, who's just returned from monitoring the elections in South Africa.